Welcome everybody to day 2 of Eubank versus Benn fight week, and today we have the open workouts. Yesterday it was a grand arrivals, but a ring has replaced the runway, and our boxers will get to strut their stuff in a slightly different environment. Always difficult to know exactly how much they'll do at the open workouts, but we will get time to speak about each individual fight in more detail and hopefully get some of the fighters over to the stream. We are still in Canary Wharf, East London. I'm still Andy Clark, he's still Matt Macklin, he's still Sonny Edwards. We'll be with you all week as we count down to a fight that is steeped in history.
Massive characters, so different, polar opposites. They're the perfect dance partners. You're either Team Chris or you're Team Nigel.
There was no in between.
Here you had two diametrically opposed individuals. On the one hand, the kid from East London streets, attitude, violent. Nigel Benn would walk into my office and I would never know if he was going to try and hit me or burst into tears and sob like a baby. Completely unpredictable.
Nigel Benn was my favourite fighter growing up. Fierce outside the ring, fierce inside the ring. His nickname was the Dark Destroyer, and I think he embodied that. There's almost this scare factor with him. He's the kind of guy you wouldn't want to see down a dark alley.
He would scream every time he knocked somebody out, like he wanted to beat him up again.
On the other side, you have Eubank. He would dress in exotic clothes purely because he knew it would get him front page on the tabloids.
The perception was that the cocky, arrogant one, you know, the showman with the big truck.
What I saw was a physical specimen that had put in a lot of work. He was the master of technique. Nigel Benn was the master of violence.
I just want to go in here and throw hell for leather at him. Not boxing, don't want to stand up there and box. I want to go in and have a fight with him. That was my attitude.
Eubank, initially, most people hated him because of his attitude. It was like, who do you think you are? He walked around like an English country gentleman. He upset a lot of people, but they all bought a ticket to watch him coming, hoping he'd get beat.
My father was the underdog, the great pretender at the time, the guy that people thought was a bit of a hype job.
Over a period of time, they began to appreciate the enigma that was Christopher Livingston Eubank.
We just clashed. We were just so different, me and Chris.
Ben did have a lot of hatred for my father, and it showed.
My dad couldn't stand seeing you. Still has to have a lot of patience with him to this day, so I completely get it.
Nigel Benn was so destructive, and that's what he brought to the ring, a very different kind of style to Chris Eubank, and that was one of the most important components of this whole rivalry.
You don't get more of a beef in boxing than you had with my father and Nigel Benn.
There we have it. It's like a Marvel origin story. That's the lineage of the fathers, and now it's the sons. It kind of seemed impossible, really, that this could happen, even though they were close enough together in age in terms of their careers. They seemed too far apart in experience, too far apart in weight. It just didn't really look like it could happen, but now it is happening. It is 100% happening. And chaps, let's kick off by discussing something that Conor said to us yesterday when he came over and chatted to us on the stream after the grand arrivals. He talked about how the fear of losing is what drives him, that it always has, but particularly for this fight. And it got me thinking, because what motivates fighters is an interesting one. And sometimes you feel like it should be the euphoria of winning, of achievement. But then I thought, with this fight, the win is not losing, because there's no title here. There's no next step in the career. There's no massive pat on the back from the boxing world for whoever wins this one. This is about not suffering what they would term as the humiliation and shame of being the one who brings defeat on the surname. That's what this is about. And it makes it quite bleak, and it makes it full of pressure. But that's where they are. It's like they're both in this deep, dark hole at the moment. On Saturday, one of them will get to climb out, and the other one will stay there.
Yeah, it's both, isn't it? Because it's the ecstasy of winning, but it's also avoiding the agony of losing, you know, because whoever loses here, you're not just losing a fight, you're losing to someone you probably can't stand, and that's that's an unbearable thought, really.
Yeah, and it's with the last names, it's a name that both fighters will have grown up hearing about, thinking about. You can imagine in the little man cave in the houses of their fathers, there was a poster somewhere that brought the memory of that fight back to their fathers' lives. And look, we're all here. The country is excited for this fight, for these two last names to be back in the ring, and so they should be. There's a lot of bragging rights. There's a lot of history to put to bed. There was still so much animosity at times between Chris Eubank and Nigel Benn after the fight. I can remember seeing them gladiator doing a sword fighting at one point, and it never really got put to bed, and that's why I think this fight is perfect to really close the final chapter on what has been a generational rivalry.
You look at the pair of them there, they're nice and calm. Conor was nice and calm when he came over to speak to us yesterday, but there is a kind of ferocity to him, an intensity to him most of the time that there isn't really to Eubank. He's kind of more serene. You look at the little smirk on his face there. He definitely feels like during the press tour that he dominated proceedings and that he'll continue to do it this week. In terms of what Conor talked about, though, I find it quite interesting that you would choose to sit in it to that extent of losing, to really motivate you. I know you all do it. Active fighters might not admit it, but retired fighters will, in my experience, the ones who've achieved like you have, will admit that you need that knot of fear in your stomach to perform, and you need during camp to be able to think, I don't fancy this last set, but I'll do it, because if I don't do it, then maybe I'll lose, and that can't happen. But for him to kind of wallow in it to the extent that he is, that's kind of a hard way to live your life, I think.
But at the same time, I admire it. It's not a fear of getting hurt. It's not a fear of getting beat or embarrassed. It's losing. He wants to win so bad. He wants to come out of the ring and perform in a way where he is championed as the winner. And I think the fear of that probably makes the most sense, really. I think there's a lot of times fighters go through the career of being a professional fighter, and their reason as to why they're here isn't always the best one. It might be fame, it might be the glitz, it might be the glamour, but when you're a competitor and the biggest fear that you have going to sleep is when the fight is announced at the end of however many rounds it goes, that you're not the one with your hand raised, that's something that can really keep you up at night, I think.
Yeah, I can only speak for myself, don't know about Sonny, but I know in terms of motivating myself, trying to pick myself up for that final set or that extra bit, it was more the fear of failure. Not wanting those. I'd back myself into a corner and I'd have all these pictures of people who I thought wanted me to lose, and I thought, they ain't going to beat me. I'm not going to have these people let that get over me. And that would drive me on more so than the people that I knew were supporting me, rooting for me. And, the positives, it was almost the fear of the negative was something I used to motivate me more so than the actual achievement.
And it wouldn't necessarily be someone in boxing. You could be in the ring getting caught with a shot, thinking about someone completely random in your life, of your personal life, and for some reason that's the imprint. I can remember getting put down for the first time. I'd been absolutely slating Paddy Barnes for months and months and months. He was the first fought, him laughing in mine. It got me up straight away. I thought, there ain't no way I'm losing at this stage of my career after giving all him the stick that I was giving him. I thought there was no chance.
Well, you do whatever it takes, don't you? You do whatever it takes to get you through. We talked just a few minutes ago after watching that VT about the rich lineage of the story of the dads, but this fight itself, it already has a backstory of its own, because it is now 3 years in the making.
This fight just worked, and we were days away from one of the biggest fights in the history of British boxing.
After discussions with various parties, we have taken the decision to formally postpone the bout between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn.
I've signed up to every voluntary anti-doping testing there is under the sun. Throughout my whole career, I'm tested. All my UK tests have come back negative throughout my whole career. I've never had any issues before. I'm a clean athlete, and we'll get to the bottom of this.
How do you remember feeling at the time?
I can't really say. I know I was distraught.
I don't know why all this came up. I don't know what happened, but I just know my son.
I don't feel like it sunk in. I don't feel like it's a hard one, because you sort of disbelief is the word.
To see my young boy, knowing he's innocent, go through all this, the rug's been pulled away from him, and he struggled.
It wasn't an initial hit. It was a slow killer. And then as the week's gone on, obviously it slowly sinks in.
Depression just hit us both. That was really hard, really hard.
To be honest with you, I still can't sit here today and say, oh, it's all worked out great. But of course, at the same time, I realise the narrative, the controversy, the hype, the discussions has all been burning like a blazing furnace since that cancellation. The fight's much bigger.
It's definitely way more personal now. For me, it's a matter of kicking a man when he's down. There's a lot of things that went on behind the scenes that the public aren't aware of that's made me hate him even more.
And now the rivalry has turned to hatred.
It's not been 8 weeks or 9 weeks leading up to this fighting camp. It's been 2.5 years.
That fight week, honestly, was, well, it was the fight week that never was in the end because we didn't have a fight, but it was absolute chaos. I've never really known anything like it because it would trickle out, you would want to get it confirmed, people weren't really in a position to do so, but bit by bit this wildfire just kind of spread and gather momentum. And as we got closer to the weekend, we're thinking, will they, won't they, they can't, can they? And then quite late on, the whole thing got pulled. But I've never really experienced anything like that. And we might never again, to be honest.
Yeah, I can only imagine what it would have been like that you hear something and you think, well, I don't want to be the person to say this and get it wrong. And then you're trying to check it. But then you don't want to not get the story out there if it's, you know, a gold sort of news flash. I can only imagine it must have been very difficult within the media at that time.
And Sonny, the rumours going around the gyms that week, I'm sure, were absolutely rampant. And it was, I mean, it wasn't good for the what happened all around because there was this huge event planned and then all of a sudden it's not happening, and you just don't get that in other sports. But it has built it. It has built it, and it probably is bigger now. And
that's where we have to put the question mark. I know initially it does seem like a big shadow over the sport, but whether you believe in the innocence of Conor Benn from the beginning till now, what we saw was the reaction of the British fight fans to even one of their own that they had been championing so much to a failed drugs test. And it's not like I was celebrating the fact. It's not like I was celebrating the fact, but as a fighter that lived his career clean and was proud of himself for doing that, seeing the reaction of the fans was kind of a bit of, okay, it was bittersweet because, you know, I was heading down, Lyndon was supposed to be fighting, as everyone involved, it would have been a fantastic fight the first time, but that reaction kind of made all the effort. You know, when you're thinking as a fighter, all these fighters, XYZ, over the years, he's fouled, and they come back and maybe their purses are bigger. I think the reaction was kind of from the fans what it should have been. Now, we're 2 years ahead. He served his time, and the public turning on him, for me, it was as much punishment as you're going to get, in my opinion. Now, he's got a chance this weekend to put all of that to bed, to make it all of it right. And yeah, I think not good for the sport, but poured a whole lot of oil over the fire, and now people are just excited as ever. There is tens of thousands of tickets sold. There'll be millions of people watching from around the country and around the world, and I think it's a fantastic event. And yeah, not good for the sport, good for the sport, I think is a grey area.
I tell you what will be interesting is the walkouts, who gets what reaction, because Eubank's used to being the bad guy, Conor Benn was used to being kind of the good guy, but it's his first time boxing in front of a British crowd for quite some time. We chatted plenty of Conor Benn. Time now to have a little bit more of a look at Chris Eubank, who has been, well, since day one really, I think, a man made for the big occasion.
This fight is personal. I can't forgive and I can't forget. I have to uphold the family name. I have to make sure that the Eubank name stays on top of the bed. I know what I am. I'm going to take you to school and I'm going to teach you every single lesson you need to learn. I'm not letting Ben even the score. Conor, you can't beat me. In my mind, I've already won a fight. My legacy is only just beginning. I'm going to finish it.
Chris Eubank Probably didn't even need a script for that. Probably didn't need any auto script. Probably just ripped it off the top of his head, because he is a very, very good talker. We've seen that in the build-up to basically all of his fights, and he will, during the course of this week, Matt, cut a serene, confident figure. But of the two here, we talked about the fear of losing. There's probably more on the line for him, because if Ben loses this fight, in terms of explaining it to himself, I've jumped up in weight, he was much more experienced than me, so I got some time to get back on track. If Eubank loses this, there are really no excuses, are there?
No, he's got all the advantages, the physical advantage, he's got the experience, everything. And like you say, it's probably the end for him. It's not like, you know, what is he now, 35, 36? Like, he hasn't got the time then to improve, develop, come back and have bigger and better nights to put that one behind him. You know, if Conor Benn loses, he can say, well, I stepped up to middleweight, I dared to be great. All right, I'm back down to welterweight. He can reinvent himself and you know, look to get a shot, a title shot at 147. For Eubank, I don't think there are any other options.
Yeah, and I can't lie, Matt, I second those thoughts. I do feel like, because of the favourite of Chris Eubank, I do feel like if he doesn't win, it probably does look at the end, because at the end of the day, how far is he going to have to come back up to get a fight after a big event like this that's worth doing, and where at the weight he's going to be operating at and the fighters that are going to be there, who would you even see him as the route? He probably would have to bow out. Where I think for Ben, it's kind of the opposite, really. I think if he doesn't come through this, well, we drop back down to 147 and we go back to what was the original plan, and he's had a lot of exposure, he had a massive fight. I think he's still going to get in the ring and put his absolute all on the line, and we're going to see as much of the depth of him, which we haven't had to see. We haven't had to see him taking shots. We haven't had to see him maybe surviving a round. We see that, we can see what he's really made of.
I think as long as Ben puts in a performance, it's a win-win for him. Where Eubank, that's not the case. He has to win.
Well, you could see the advantages there on the screen. He's older, and you wouldn't say that's necessarily an advantage, but maybe it is, because it comes with a greater experience. Same with the record at the bottom there. He's much more experienced. Has he hit that tipping point where he's gone from being seasoned to being a bit shot-worn? Maybe. We'll find out more about that on Saturday, but he's got the height, he's got the reach. He's weighed in at 168. He was a good solid super middleweight. He had loads of energy at super middleweight, whereas the heaviest that Ben has weighed in is 154.5, and that tells its own story in many ways, doesn't it?
And let's face it, if we was playing top trumps right now, there's not a measure that Conor Benn can possibly win on. He had every number on the board. So, like I said yesterday, and like I said when we met up, I think this is a great opportunity to see what Ben's really made of. We've been very excited about him, and British fight fans have really got behind him. This is the first fight, in my opinion, where it's clear that, and it's probably not even a 50-50, it's clear that he's up the upside now. He needs to come and have a performance and really overcome those physical advantages that we've just seen him on the board.
Okay, well, we've got a very tasty undercard as well. The fighters aren't too far away. I think Thomas Triber's up on the stage, so our first fighters will be in the ring pretty shortly. Chris Billam-Smith against Brandon Glanton at cruiserweight. Good, tough fight that for the gentleman on his return after that unification defeat against Zurdo Ramirez. Really good British cruiserweight title fight. Cheavon Clarke and Vidal Riley, some spice to that. Liam Smith, experience and achievement against potential, and Aaron McKenna. And a trilogy there between and Lyndon Arthur. They've met twice before. Arthur won on points the first time, Yard by stoppage the second time around. So there's plenty to get stuck into there, and a few of them hopefully will take a wander over once they've done their workout and have a quick chat with us. You don't really know what you're going to get at workouts, but I think we've had some checkways today as well with the British Boxing Board of Control, and there's been quite a lot of media stuff to do. So some people might fancy giving us a little bit of a show. Others might fancy pulling out the skipping rope or putting on some gloves for the bare minimum and then getting back out of there. It just depends on what they've already done today and what they feel like, really.
Yeah, exactly that. Guys that are tight at weight, I don't think we're going to see a lot from them. ones who are comfortable, they may want to hit the pads.
Yeah, and that's normally what you seem to think it is. When you someone get in, headphones in, maybe do a little wave at the crowd, it usually doesn't give me a great sign of confidence of where they're at right now. If the mindset is, oh no, I don't want to get in front of all the cameras and get some pictures and see the fans, and if your reaction isn't that, normally you got focused on one thing, and that's, well, later I might have to do a session, or earlier I had to take some weight off, and I'm not really rehydrating as much right now, so it makes sense where we'll see what we see.
Of championship boxing this Saturday, April 26th, from Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London, England. It is being brought to you by Ring Magazine and SNK Corporation, the publisher of the famous video fighting game Fatal Fury City of Wolves, with Ben Shalom for Boxer, Eddie Hearn for Matchroom Boxing, and Box Raw in association with Ring Magazine. Along with their great sponsors. Public Investment Fund, Visit Saudi, STC, SRMG, Dr. Suleiman El Habib Medical Group, Saudia, the national airline of Saudi Arabia, Jeddah Season, Malaf Cola, Visit Qatar, Core Group, Desert, NHC, Jacko, Sky, Arab National Bank, First Data, Sella, and SMC. A big thanks to those great sponsors. It will be broadcast worldwide on DAZN and on Sky Sports Box Office in the UK. Final tickets are available now through ticketmaster.co.uk. Let's now get the media workout started. Our first two fighters will be competing Saturday in a scheduled 12-round cruiserweight contest. Let's first welcome, coming to us from Atlanta, Georgia, USA. He brings a professional record of 20 wins, 2 defeats, 17 of his 20 wins coming by way of knockout. Here is the highly ranked fighter by all major sanctioning bodies and number 8 by Ring Magazine, Brandon Bulletproof Glanton.
So Brandon Glanton up against Chris Billam-Smith. It's 4 against 5 with the WBC. He's ranked at number 8 with the Ring Magazine, as you heard Thomas Treiber say there. And he comes here with some real confidence because he does have a couple of defeats. One was in a world title eliminator, basically, against David Light. It was very tight, but he didn't get the decision. But he's coming into it off the back of a big win. He went to Russia to take on Alexei Egorov. Maybe slightly past his best, Egorov, but still a really good fighter. And basically, in front of a Russian crowd, he made him quit. Egorov took a knee in the 11th round and stayed there, and that's quite something to do to a Russian on home turf, because you don't sit out the count over there very lightly.
No, and it, like you said, it doesn't happen very often. When they're building up a fighter, we just got to look, when Yard went over for Kovalev, they really do get behind it. All the variables on the fighter's side, they get them home, they get you all the way over to Russia, they really look after them, and then, foreign fighters, and when you're going far to Russia, it's seemingly a hard place to get a result from anyway. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of Brandon Glanton. He seems a very, very powerful, very no-nonsense sort of fighter, but someone that hasn't seemed to get a big home support or a big backing from where he's from. So he's been having to go and travel a little bit. He's here, he was in Russia, he's been on the road a few other times, so this could really springboard his career and win here against Chris Billam-Smith. Yeah,
also he may feel they're getting Chris Billam-Smith at the right time as well on the downward spiral after the loss against Ramirez. He's been champion, he's earned a few quid. What is he now, 34-ish, I guess? So he's probably thinking, we're catching him at the right time here.
Yeah, I think there's definitely an element of that if you're Team Glanton. He's a good fighter to watch. He's strong. He likes to get onto the front foot, throws a lot of hooks and uppercuts, leads off with that strong left hand. He's orthodox, but I wouldn't be amazed if he's left-handed. I'll try and ask him during the course of the week. Left-handed orthodox fighters, right-handed southpaws, there's more of them around than you might think. And when you see somebody with a real strong lead hand that they like to use, often that is the reason. It's a good match. Stylistically, it should gel well, because Bilham Smith, I mean, he doesn't really do bad fights, does he? And he's lacing them up, Glanton, so I think we're going to see a little bit of work here. They're taking some care, making sure they take those laces down so that nothing just flicks up and catches him in the eye at this late stage. All the hard work is done now, and the last thing you need is some kind of rogue accident a few days out from fight night. Is there anything to be really learned from this? If you're Shane McGuigan's here, actually, you might wander over for a chat in a bit. He'll be watching this, dutifully watching it. You have to, of course, you have to watch it. But realistically, can you learn anything?
Probably nothing that he wouldn't have seen on YouTube or on Instagram. You know, a very experienced trainer, Shane McGuigan, he's not going to have come in not knowing exactly who CBS is getting in the ring with. I do like the idea of when a fighter is coming straight in, gloves on, ready to show off on the pads. Let's be when you're feeling good about yourself as a fighter, you want everyone to stand there and watch you hit the pads. You want to make the noise. You're there with your trainer. It's fight week. You want the photos. So I think this is a good show of a bit of confidence coming straight in, not sort of trying to play any mind games, not trying to, oh yeah, I'm doing a little skip, wasting time, sort of doing his media obligation. He's got straight in, chucking his gloves on, and started throwing some heavy shots.
That's a good point, that, actually, Matt. I think what they do on these occasions, if they choose not to do very much, it doesn't mean that there's some kind of crisis, but if they choose to do something, then that generally means that there can't be any kind of serious problem.
No, it would be a sign that they feel good and they want to get out there and they feel confident, they feel good, the weight's on point, everything's on track. And yeah, they want to go out there and show everyone that they feel good, that they're super confident, they're not hiding away.
Yeah, there's always definitely a big statement on the weight, because anyone that is really tight, they want to do as little, because this isn't the moment that they're wanting to show their best. They're just wanting to get through the fight week. They're wanting to make sure their food's right. They're resting, they're recovered, and they're doing as little as possible, really.
Well, he didn't work out for too long, but that's fair enough. The slots actually on this workout are fairly tight, 5-6 minutes per fighter. They want things to be nice and streamlined and get everybody through everything, because they've had quite a lot of media requirements and demands on their time already so far, the fighters. And it is them that you have to think about, because these are long weeks, and although they understand the need to sell the fight, you don't want anybody hanging around for no particularly good reason.
No, and if you're making weight as well, I mean, taking a lot of water out, you're probably drinking that much water still on Wednesday, you know, you're not, it's almost uncomfortable. So yeah, you don't want to be in there too long, wasting energy. If you're low on carbohydrates, you just want to try and conserve as much energy as possible.
Yeah, and usually the slots, you get there and you're excited to do the public workout, especially when you're early on the way up and it's big events for the first time. You get there, they say you got a 5-minute slot. You ain't really got all too much time. You don't get, you don't get organised to do it for 15-20 minutes.
Okay, so here he is, the man himself. We'll just slot him in between me and Macklin. Brandon, good to see you.
Hey, how are you?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Thanks for coming over. We were just saying that if a fighter chooses to pull on the gloves and do some pad work at a workout, that's generally a sign that you're in a good place, the weight is good and you're feeling good.
Oh, yeah, man. My weight's always good. I make weight pretty easy. Just a little something, see a little something, and break this boy's face Saturday. Yeah.
So I remember you coming to Fight Week in Bournemouth when Chris Bilham Smith was boxing Lawrence Okoli, and you were after a fight with anybody that week, really. You fancied it with anyone. Yeah. But did you have your eye on him at that point, that maybe you would fight Bilham Smith in the future?
Actually, no. I was supporting my friend, Okoli, and this guy who walks past me, I didn't want to fight him until he refused to shake my hand. After that, yeah, I knew I would see him eventually, especially when he beat Lawrence, So, yeah, I'm here now. I bet you he shakes my hand this time.
Do you think Matt was just making a point that maybe your team and yourself feel like you're getting Billam Smith at a good time after that defeat against Zurdo Ramirez?
Hey, definitely, you know, he's definitely a war horse. Chris has done this in time. So the lights, cameras, and action doesn't mean too much to him because of his experience, right? He's done this. Obviously, the common person would say it's a great time, and I'll tell you this, it's not a better time to take him, but rest assured, he's coming, he's focused, he's coming well prepared to do his job, and so I am too.
Okay, last one. It's a huge night on Saturday. You're boxing at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. You'll see it tomorrow. It is an impressive place.
Yeah.
Are you looking to win inside the distance? You'd always look for the knockout, don't you?
Yeah, my career has taught me that I can win fights, and if I don't knock people out, I don't get the decision. So not only for that, I'm looking to end his career. So I made that pretty clear.
Okay, thanks very much for joining us.
Absolutely.
Good to meet you. We'll see you tomorrow. Take it easy the rest of the week. So Brandon Glanton, nice and calm there, but not mincing his words. He's here to punch Billam Smith's head in and end his career. That's there's no ambiguity involved in anything that he said there, but he seems, yeah, he's chilled out. He said the weight's good, he feels good, and I believe him.
Yeah, very calm, relaxed character. You could see he weren't really agitated, he weren't excited. He didn't even seem too focused or worried about what Chris Billam Smith is. Now he's giving him a shout behind our back. I don't know what he's saying, but he's shouting something.
There's a solid look.
Someone
to
get
Glanton.
the camera on Brandon. He's going to beat his...
He is. And Matt, just having him kind of like stood next to us there and just looking at him from a close distance, he's very solid, isn't he? Big legs, big strong backside, strong shoulders. There's a real kind of density to him.
Yeah, he's almost like a prop forward, a front row rugby player, isn't he? Very stocky, very thick set, very chunky. But yeah, like I say, he looks like a very strong build.
Yeah, and I mean, quite surprised to see how relaxed he was all of 2 minutes ago to make sure that he shouted out in maybe typical American fashion, we can say, letting Chris Billam Smith that he's going to beat him up and that he should be scared of him, and sort of giving him, you know, that sign that it's not all nice and we're not all just going to be playing nice this week. So yeah, I'm excited to see how that sort of progresses. He's still going on behind us. You can actually see him in just over our shoulder here. Yeah, it's making it hard for me to focus, but go on, Andy.
So Billam Smith there chose to just stand and pose for some photos, as is his. You get to decide what it is you do and you don't do, but they wanted to get in and get out pretty quickly. I think he's wandered over for a chat with DAZN. I think we got Brandon, they get Chris. I don't know if he'll be coming over this way. Fair enough if he doesn't. What does that tell you? That he didn't really want to do anything in the ring? Does it tell you anything?
No, I don't think so. He did a little bit of shadow boxing, didn't he? I think he just wants to tick the box. He's done it. He's fulfilled his media obligations for the workout day. He may well have already done a workout today, or he might be doing one tonight. So if that is the case, he's not going to, you know, like I say, you get a 5-minute slot here. So what is it really? Probably it's not worth getting a sweat on for.
But the only thing that sort of gives me suspicions is any fighter, including myself, my friends, any fighter I work with in management, any fighter that is full healthy, not nursing a hand injury or something, they're making weight fine, they always want to get in there and show off. So when someone comes with just a bit more reserved, it always puts a big question mark over how they're really feeling, how far are they really weight. It might just be they've measured all the numbers and they don't want to start sweating now when they've got some to do tomorrow, maybe more to do tomorrow. So it might be for scientific measure, but I don't know. When we don't see him doing something, there's a big question mark for me.
Okay, so Nigel Benn is in the building. He arrived a little while ago, the Dark Destroyer. He kind of still gives me chills, to be honest, when I see him up close and personal, because Eubank Ben was just such a massive thing for me when I was a kid. I was obsessed with Eubank, but I really liked Ben as well, and he's still got this aura about him, Nigel Benn. He really does. But on to our next fight, this British Cruiser title fight between Vidal Riley. He is the challenger. He's won an English title, and he's up against Cheavon Clarke. Been listening to some comments from Vidal in the build-up to this fight, and he feels that he can get the stoppage against Cheavon Clarke, that Clarke has been hurt at intervals during his career, which is true. He had a very difficult start to his last fight, for example, his European title fight against Leonardo Mosquera. And you've seen quite a lot of Cheavon Clarke, Sonny, and it's true that that's happened in real life. He has been hurt on occasions, but he's also got over it and come back. So there's two sides to every story there.
Yeah, and even in that fight, Mosquera had a lot of success in the early couple of rounds. He was landing some big, heavy, clean shots, and it almost was like Chev started clawing back in the middle rounds against a much bigger and what seemed quite stronger opponent. He almost looked a weight above in there, Mosquera, to Chev that night. And now I do think with Vidal, the sizes is a bit of a different matchup, and the physicality, in my opinion, does favour Cheavon Clarke. He's very no-nonsense. He gets in sort of a search and destroy type mission, where the man we see in the ring right now, Vidal Riley, is a expert at the technique, his footwork, his balance, his moving, his reactions. He's a very, very talented boxer and has always shown that since a very young age. The big question marks around this fight for me is if the fight starts hitting rounds 5, round 6, round 7, and Chev has been used to it because he's been matched quite tough quite early in his career. We look at the fighters he was fighting. He was fighting fighters that the sort of big names in his division were fighting, and Chev was doing better than a lot of them for most cases, and really aggressively matching himself, where it all, he was saying yes to everyone that was coming through the door. He come back from a defeat against Mosquera for the European title, and he's come straight back into a proper fight against Vidal Riley to defend his British championship. And I think this fight is one of those on the card that could really shine and really capture a bit of the attention on Saturday night.
So do you think that Vidal's lack of seasoning through maybe easier matchmaking could be his undoing in this fight?
I'm not sure about that side of things. I think it's more how much time he's spent doing difficult 8, 10, 12 rounds of a fight to be going in against someone that has shown, even on the receiving end, in more rounds than not. He lost the fight. It was a close fight, but he lost the fight. And he took heavy shots. He was still there. He was still going. He didn't fade. He didn't disappear or look for a way out. He's definitely ticked all those boxes. And what we've only seen really so far as Vidal is being the man, being the boss, having skill and talent where the opponent in front of him hasn't even made him ask any sort of questions about what's the depth of your character, what's the depth of your toughness, how much are you really willing to go through in order to get there. That is yet to be seen. Doesn't mean it's not there, but we haven't seen it yet.
You know, I hear what you're saying. What I'm hearing is that you think Vidal's skills, technique, boxing talent ticks all those boxes, but we don't know, and you're not saying that it isn't there, but we don't know how hard he is yet.
We've never seen him over a hard 8, 10, 12 rounds. We haven't seen it yet. We've seen him be a terrific amateur. We've seen him win stuff all over the world. We've seen him then starting to build his professional career, and he's looked tidy, he's looked neat, he's looked in control. Now, I look at a fighter like that with a lot of ratings. I know sometimes it's easy to overlook the fighters that aren't getting in, knocking their man out cold within 2-3 rounds. But that control, is that one step ahead, usually has more legs to the end of the career. However, the conditioning, the environment, your body, how you're training, how you're preparing camp, it's a fight like this that they get shone a light on, those factors. His boxing will probably really see him start with a nice lead, in my opinion, but it's then when Chev starts coming and how well and how physically capable he is keeping him at distance, keeping him away, and matching the work and the volume from Chev.
And just because he hasn't done it doesn't mean he can't do it.
Yeah, and I genuinely believe with a fighter as talented as Vidal, it will be easier to maybe slip into that sort of efficient 80%, winning the rounds, maybe nicking a close one, but sort of always having that one step, one shot, and maybe not overworking or doing too much to get it.
Saving a bit.
Yeah, because I think once he knows every round starts and he lands a few clean shots, well, now it's sort of like a catch me game. It's kind of how close can you get to me, and the longer he stays in there, you'd think it's his fight.
But he's been wanting these bigger challenges. He's been seeking them out. They just haven't quite happened. That fight with Isaac Chamberlain was supposed to happen on February the 1st and then didn't come off, and he was on the floor really after that. But then within a week he got the call for this one, which is obviously a better fight. He's been at this a really long time though, I've seen his name and yours up on the honours board at Newham Boys, just down the road from where I live. He was a star, wasn't he, as a kid? So he's really, really steeped in boxing. He doesn't have that professional seasoning, as you say, but sometimes you can forget just how long somebody has been doing something and how well they know the sport and how well they feel they do know what will happen when it gets tough, even if they haven't proved it yet. Okay, so backstage, Conor Benn, I think, has made his way into the building. There he is. We saw his dad, Nigel, arrive a few minutes ago, and it's been a long 2.5 years since that crazy fight week in October 2022. It's the first time back in front of a British crowd. That'll be an interesting experience as Vidal Riley just leaves the ring, and Cheavon Clarke will be next up. I wonder how much Eubank and Ben will do in there today. I got a feeling that Ben might give us a little bit of a show. He's not going to be tight at the weight, we know that.
No, exactly. So you would like to think that he will want to hit the pads, will want to have that buzz going, get people, excited about what they can see. I'll be surprised if Eubank does anything. He will be tight at weight.
Yeah, you would imagine that would be the case because, as we've been saying, they have had checkways today, 3% checkways, where you need to be within 3% of your fighting weight 3 days out to avoid people basically crashing too much weight too late on. It's a sound idea which, in theory, does work. In practice, not necessarily always, but if fighters are crashing to get down to the 3% and then putting weight on and then doing it again on weigh-in day, then you know that it's not gone according to plan, is it?
No, but that's what happens, isn't it? People do lose that weight for the check weight because they have to make the check weight, and they're going to be dry when the way in, so they're going to be dry for the check weight. So, like you say, in theory it's a nice idea, but in reality, I think it's a waste of time.
And not only is it a waste of time, those check weights, I think, they're meant to be for the safety of the sport. I would argue they do the opposite.
Exactly.
When there's certain fighters that are getting on fight night and they're still fighting at the weight that was previously agreed, but they've had to 28 days hit this percent, 14 days hit this, 7 days hit this, 3 days again hit this, and then the 7 and the 3 are the really interesting ones because look how much they've got to do this week. And I know, okay, professional fighters, it's in your job description, you got to go to the public workout, you got to go to the weigh-in, you got to go to the press conference, and the grand arrival now, that's kind of a new addition since the Saudi and Riyadh season. But for me, I don't think having 3-4 mini weight cuts where fighters, let's be real, Matt, we both know, are always taking off some weight to get on that weight cut. I just don't think
that's what I'm saying.
I just don't think that sort of jumping the gun a couple of times just to make someone with a clipboard
tick
happy,
a box.
I don't think it makes any sense. I think it has to be maybe a better way of doing it. I don't think it's that.
It's tricky though, isn't it? Because you can see why it's come in. Just kind of final thing on that. I remember Eubank Senior, all the stories going around about Eubank Senior in his fight against Nigel Benn, the first one, that he lost 16 pounds in fight week. That was how he chose to do it. Just keep his natural fighting weight for sparring and then just go through that torture of losing it late. And at one point he remarked at ITV's Jim Rosenthal, "Jim, my eyeballs feel dry," which is a great line, isn't it?
But the fighters will still lose the 16 pounds just to get to the check weight, then put a bit more on and still lose it again. So if anything, it's making it harder.
You're crafty. That's the problem. You're too crafty, you lot. You'll think of a way around everything. This is Cheavon Clarke, Team C4. Just having a little move around is how we would describe that, I think. Not doing too much. An Olympian, of course. And as you were saying, Sonny, I feel like his career has been managed really, really well because he started with 6-rounders. He's been put in hard, but he's achieved. Put into 6-rounders, 8-rounder in his third fight. Then he's in with Davy Jameson, who was a British title challenger in his previous fight. Vassal Dutsar did 10 rounds with him. Very tough guy. I remember him with Bilham Smith. Tommy McCarthy, former European champion. At the back end, by that point, McCarthy was still a really good fighter. Won the vacant British against Ellis Zorro. Had a hard fight in America. And then went straight in with Mosquea, who's is described a good, hard fighter for a European title, and was very close to winning that fight. So he's done a lot in a short period of time, but he probably needed to because he turned over quite late. And I guess the only thing you could say in the negative column is that he's got a few miles on the...
Yeah, and I think he travelled the world, I think initially with Jamaica representing them, then he found his way onto the GB team. We know what that system has and can do for a fighter that's really been there. I think you can see the good shape he's always in, though. He does train hard. I think he's conditioned very well. But yeah, as you said, Andy, he had to maybe take the safety off early than what a 21-year-old prospect coming through would have. And I think for the most part, he hadn't really put a foot wrong, obviously, at the European title against a fighter that the French, they really rated Mosquera. When that fight was made, I was over there. They was really, really backing their man. They was confident on that one. And okay, Chev was edged out in that fight, but for me, showed a hell of a lot against a fighter, like I said previously, very big, very strong, and very tough Mosquera. A dangerous fighter for anyone in the division, I think.
Okay, here he comes. We'll slide him in between me and Macklin again. The reigning, defending British cruiserweight champion. Actually, I was just going to ask you, who is that? Because he didn't really want to come into the ring there with you. You were trying to get him to come in. You're trying to get him to join you in the interview.
So this little man is such a good boxer, so confident. But today he wasn't feeling it today. So, you know, he's the boss, so I just had to let him be, you know what I mean? He didn't want to feel embarrassed with me. He wasn't feeling my swag. I didn't have, you know what I mean? I wasn't dressed correct today. I didn't come correct.
Maybe I'll let Chev have his moment. You take it from here. You take it. I'll just do the ring walk. You can have your moment.
Well, they'll watch that back in future years and they'll think, God, that was a missed opportunity to show people what I could do. So how are you? How are you feeling? We're a few days away now.
I feel very good. Calm, relaxed, know what I've got to do. Do you know what I mean? So it's my belt, and I'm going to protect it. Bring it home.
Is there a relationship between you and Vidal? Do you know each other particularly well? Have you sparred?
Oh yeah, I know Vidal. Been around, not like best friends, but we've shared rounds before. He was helping me out. I've helped him out. So yeah, it's nothing personal as in bad blood. It's just the business that we're in, and obviously a certain promoter tried to push me to the side before and get his two fighters to fight, and I just had to pull up and just, you know what I mean? I just showed them what time it was.
So, in the media, we quite often like to simplify things, make things quite basic. And one kind of analysis I've seen of this fight is that in Vidal Riley, you've got the younger guy, the kind of slicker guy, the stylist, and in Cheavon Clarke, you've got the older guy, the rougher guy. And people like to try and make it binary as like the boxer against the brawler. I don't think that's something you're very keen on, is it?
Mate, it's not what I'm keen on, it's just the facts. It's like people out here acting like I can't box. Like when I came out and I became mandatory for the belt, when I fought David Jameson and turned up and I boxed ever so well. Sonny was there, he'll tell you. You guys are acting like Chev can't box.
No, we know Chev can box. It's whether when Chev gets in the ring he wants to box. Usually it's walking forward, it's nodding to your opponent, letting them know you're going to hit them and throwing heavy hands. That's what I've seen predominantly for your career, and I think you've done a great job of speaking just before you come over about how genuinely tough Mosquera was and how close the fight was and how much you showed against, for me, a big puncher that landed some good shots early on, but you dug deep down and pushed him right to the end. Could have got it, in my opinion. I was sat ringside, but you could see how and why it went the way it did. And I think, me personally, Chev, the big question mark here is what's Vidal feeling after rounds 5, 6, 7? I think we know you in rounds 10, round 12. We know what you're still doing. We know what you're on. But for me, that's the most interesting part of this fight.
I mean, you're a boxing man. You know what you're talking about. Everybody else has been talking like Chev's. It's going to be a Muhammad Ali versus whoever. Chev's just going to walk in there and get his head pinged off, innit? So.
Oh, I've not really caught up with everyone else's opinion for this one. Like I said, I've known Vidal since a young age. Talent to burn. Genuinely, he's got balance, he's got control of his feet, he's got the slips, he's got the reactions. But the question mark when he first turned senior, the question mark when I first seen him as in the pros, what's his engine saying? What's his conditioning saying? What's his heart? I know as a fighter that's probably suffered of the talent syndrome, a few corners here and there because you believe in yourself that you can get away with it. In this ring, he has to have prepared like he's never prepared that I've seen him be able to prepare for a fight before, because Chev is physically impressive for all the 12 rounds.
How much are you looking forward to a stadium fight?
I'm looking forward to it, especially the fact that it's Tottenham Stadium, obviously, and Arsenal Man ain't wearing the top today. But of course,
You're going to wear it to the ring, though?
Huh?
Are you going to wear it to the ring?
Who knows? But you know, Arsenal's won the league there, so you know it's my time to just bring my title back home where it belongs there as well. Do you know what I mean? I mean, Tottenham may never won nothing, so let's have it right.
We all like Tottenham, don't we, boys?
Okay, well, we'll let you go. Thanks very much for coming over. Hope the rest of the week goes well. And the weigh-in passes off without any kind of incident, and we see a good fight on the night.
Sorry to interrupt. Let me just tell you, that's fight of the night. Because people are talking like it ain't fight of the night, but it's fight of the night, and I'm done talking.
Okay, here we go. Don't drop the mic. We'll just grab that off you before you go. So, meanwhile, thanks for coming over, Chev. Meanwhile, we've had Aaron McKenna in the ring, and now we've got Liam Smith. These two meet at middleweight, and this is a really interesting fight. Last time we saw Liam in the ring was against Eubank Jr. in the rematch, and he got well beaten that night after a stunning, magnificent knockout victory in their first encounter. All was not well with him in the build-up to that fight, but that happens. He didn't use it as an excuse, but I don't think we saw the best of him that night, although you have to give Eubank full credit. He was then supposed to box at Wembley last September against Josh Kelly and had to pull out quite late on, and that seemed like a real blow because that was an opportunity to get back on a massive stage quickly. And I'm sure he would have ummed and ahed about pulling out of that fight, Matt, because he would have wanted it so much, but he would have known that at that stage, if he'd lost again, then it would have been difficult to know where he'd go from there. So it would have been the right thing to do. And now he's got another fight on a huge platform. And to be honest with you, against McKenna, who will suit him better than Josh Kelly, I would think.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what he said to me. Why he pulled out, he said, you know, I can't afford any slip-ups now. You know, after the Eubank loss in the rematch, he said, you know, I was terrible that night. You could see that, and you could see. But listen, you're right. You have to say as well that shouldn't take anything away from Eubank's win, because he went over there. He came back after that last. He went over to Vegas, new trainer, came out, and he did what he was supposed to do. But Liam knew off the back of that performance, if he was to slip up again, underperform, whatever the reasons were, it'd be a very long, hard road back.
Yeah, and I think those reasons that we're talking about, I think, look, when you're dealing with a massive fight and you get signed into the rematch and you're kind of the away fighter in the sense of who the home wants to win.
Get a B-side.
Yeah, of course. And then what's happened is, if you want the fight, it's this day, otherwise it's gone. And I think he didn't get the best preparation, didn't get the best camp, and I think we saw that night probably one of the worst Liam Smiths there's been. Now, I still have great belief that there's plenty more left from that. I think with a proper camp, done the weight right, good starting point, and enough weeks in between, we're going to see still a top world level fighter. I think very just always lets his hands go, very, very tough. That night, he didn't show the same toughness that he'd shown, what, 8 months before? And now I think with the right preparation, you can see him how good he looks. He's looked in great shape all week. He doesn't look tight at the weight from my knowledge. And yeah, I've got a lot of confidence in Liam Smith's performance in this weekend.
So Liam, good to see you. Thanks for coming over. We were saying it's been a long time coming, this next fight, hasn't it? Because last time we saw you was in the rematch against Eubank. We thought we'd see you at Wembley last September. You'd have been absolutely gutted at having to pull out of that one. But you never know what's around the corner, do you? And this is a great fight for you to come back in.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, you know, last time I was in the ring, I had a horrendous performance. You know, it's no secret. Everybody's seen it. I know the issues behind it. And Saturday, I got to, you know, right that wrong. I was unfortunate. I got ill. I didn't get injured for the card. You know, I got ill. And Saturday, I get to right that wrong. Prove the people who ripped me off after the Eubank Jr. second fight. You know, how can I be finished with no miles on the clock in between the first fight? The first fight, I'm the best middleweight in the world. The second fight, I'm finished and need to retire with nothing in between. It doesn't make sense. So, you know, I know the issues behind it. And I can only put that right the next time I get in the ring, and that's Saturday night.
And Matt, that is something you say a lot, is that you are only as good as your last fight. And what he said there is absolutely true. He knocks out Chris Eubank Jr. and everybody's eulogising over him, then he loses a rematch and he's useless all of a sudden. It's a crazy sport.
Yeah, welcome to boxing.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
That's the game we're in. But like I said, I was just saying before you come over, obviously you pulled out in the last one because you were ill. And I remember you saying to me, I can't afford a bad performance, no matter what the reason is. I can't say afterwards I was ill. I'll be just cast aside and the sport moves on, doesn't it? So
exactly.
You've got to be tip-top.
Exactly, and like I say, you know, in boxing, really, I could say I vomited on the way to boxing. No one cares, you know what I mean? And like, no one's interested. I'm getting... Chris Eubank has got my MRI scans. They sent me to a doctor. You know, I had a prolapse disc and a bulge on one of my discs. It was no secret, but it's excuses. Like, the be-all and end-all, the book should have stuck with me. I should have called the bluff. I beat Chris the first time. He needed the rematch, and hindsight's a great thing. Nobody paid a bigger price than losing that fight than me.
But it's tough when you're getting a big payday and you convince yourself that you're going to be all right.
Yeah, but no, when you look back now, Matt, like, I was always getting the rematch. I should have, you know, it's ifs and buts, and like I said, hindsight's great.
But you're worried at the time that they're going to move on and you're not going to get that fight.
100%. I was getting told, you know, Eubank Jr. walks and I get took to court because they can't fulfil my contract. And yeah, it was. I was told a lot of things like that. But me being the person I was, I thought, you know what, make weight again. I'll knock him out again. And it didn't work that way. And like I said before, nobody paid a bigger price than me for what come after that fight and the criticism I got. Nobody's paid a bigger price than losing than me.
Okay, back to Saturday. What do you make of McKenna? Because he's undefeated, he's quite intense. They absolutely live the life, him and his brother, and you can see why they fancy this. It's ambitious, it's a bold move by them, but they look at you and they think, God, that would be an amazing name to get on my record to catapult my career to the next level. So he's as hungry as it gets.
Yeah, he is, but there's loads of ways I can answer that question. Like, yeah, they're hungry, the two game kids. Sometimes a little bit clueless in how game they are, but then you can also look at it as they are trying to get me at the right time, because a fit Liam Smith is Aaron McKenna's worst nightmare. He is absolutely made for a fit Liam Smith, and if he thinks he's going to stand and fight with me, that's my point. He is my ideal opponent. Take away an inch or two in the height, his style is my perfect opponent to fight against.
So what are we going to see?
You know, the old Liam Smith back, and I'll break Adam McKenna down and I'll stop him.
Okay, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
We will see you again later in the week, I'm sure. And meanwhile, the light heavyweight fight has been in the ring. Lyndon Arthur has been doing a little workout and he joins us straight away, seamlessly. A man who was very familiar to Sonny Edwards. Lyndon chose not to do an awful lot there, which most people are doing. Quite tight slots for the open workout, and you just want to get through it and then get on with your day, really. But midweek now, a few days out, how's the weight making process? How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm at a good weight. First time I've had a nutritionist properly. Followed the whole plan for the whole time. I'm in the best shape I've ever been in a long time, so I'm excited to get to it.
It's a trilogy. We know it's a trilogy. We know what happened in the first fight. We know what happened in the second fight. Is there too much relevance to either of those two fights now, because they were a while ago and a lot's happened to both of you since then?
Nah, he's going to come and do what he's going to do, and I've got to go in there and be better than I was in the second. I'm better than I was in the first, and I feel like I'm in that position also, and I feel like I'm at that place. So,
what do you make of him, Sonny? You know him well.
What do you want to say?
Well, can I tell the truth?
What I say now?
In all seriousness, I genuinely believe the best I've seen Lyndon prepare for a fight. I think was with him in the photo shoot earlier in the media day, and it's the first time I've really seen him ripped and looking like strong at the weight. It usually gets to this point, and I'm calling Lyndon 2 weeks out, and he's half asleep, no matter what time of the day it is. Yeah, I feel good. Yeah, body's good. Yeah. And it's usually very, very low vibrations, and what looks like, as a friend, someone that's kind of getting to the hard part of camp and he's tired. This Lyndon I've seen for this camp all week, he's been energetic, he's been infused, he's been buzzing to be here. I think sometimes in some fights, and especially more than any other point in his career, when Lyndon had to go back to London after already beating Yard in London and was half promised that he was going to get his homecoming in Manchester for the rematch, and then that never came through. I think you've got to kind of and aggravated Lyndon in that fight. That also went in against Yard without the fear. He didn't get stopped with him the first time. He didn't get hurt or landed anything really clean in the first fight. So he went in there with a bit more complacency, a bit more arrogance. I think he knows now that, okay, you might be riding shots, but if one lands, even if you jump up before the count, the ref can still stop it. And then look, you're in a place where you've never been before, never wanted to be. And now it's taken really getting the IBO world title, a massive shot, unification against Bivol, all the way now to this, to get this fight. He's had a frustrating period where a fight's getting offered, getting dangled in front of him, and then nothing for months, and then, 4 or 5 weeks notice. He's too good of a fighter to not get the respect he deserves in a big fight, and he's had it for this one. There's no excuses. He's prepared. He's ate the right way. He's slept the right way, and I am buzzing for this fight and really looking forward to my best friend Lyndon doing the job on Anthony Odd.
Just one more for you before you go. Looking at how your career has gone, you've been at the top end for a good while now, but this sport is about making money. You're prize fighters. You want to try and secure your future as much as you can. After you had that fight against Bivol, where you really dug in and showed what you were all about against someone who, let's put it this way, that performance will age well because he's gone on to become undisputed champion. I'm not going to ask you what you got paid, but it would have been good. When something like that happens, does it take the pressure off a little bit and just allow you to become a better boxer? Because that one worry maybe is off your mind. Does that make sense?
It does, in a sense, probably yeah or no, but you go from that high up, then anything but, like, no offense, but when I boxed Liam Cameron, is going out fight, and it was just like, it was top of the bill, but it was up about an arena rather than, I was just
hard to get up for it.
I was, yeah, in a sense, I was just in Saudi at a co-main event, but was what could have been a main event against the best pound, one of the best pound in the world. Back down to Liam Cameron, it was, hey, I go and then I'll fight.
Flat and hard to pick yourself back up.
Yeah, kind of thing. Well, you know, as a fighter, that happens a lot. So, but for this one, I'm here and I'm excited.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. There's two sides to it, I guess. Well, thanks very much for coming over. We'll let you go. Maybe you want to watch Anthony Yard. Maybe you're not bothered. Actually, well, one.
He looks good, man. It's all good. Yeah.
There's been a bit of carry on between.
Well, these two have been top and tailing for the last 20 years, so they'd be quite good on pads. These two have been top and tailing for the last 20 years, so you'd think they'd be quite good at pads with each other.
He wants to laugh. He wants to.
Yeah, he's moving the mic away from him.
Okay, let's leave it there. Let's leave it there. Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Lyndon. The good thing about working with Sonny Edwards is that he is an absolute master at just sailing just close enough to the wind. Just close enough to the wind.
I like fine margins, Andy.
We could tell that when you were boxing. But a kind of interesting subplot to it is there has been a bit of carry-on between Tunde Ajayi and Pat Barrett, Lyndon's trainer. I didn't think that at any point we would get a sixth fight on the card, but yeah, that's an interesting matchup.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there was a couple of weeks where Tunde just got a bit excited. He was tweeting, he was mentioning people he's never mentioned before. People later on the day he was apologising to on the phone to, but yeah, I just think, I don't know, there was a couple of weeks where he was just on one a bit, and I know they wanted this fight. Lyndon wanted this fight. Lyndon wanted the fight since the second fight. It was just never offered, thought about, or talked about. As soon as it got offered, yes, straight away. And now we're here today.
And whoever wins it will put themselves right into the frame for a shot at a world title. What we know is that Dimitri Bivol now has 3 of them. The WBC has become vacant. And when that's a situation, you do have fighters who are waiting maybe for things to scatter a little bit. We do expect Bivol and Beterbiev, of course, to fight for a third time. And I think we all want to see that because, well, we definitely all want to see it because it's 1-1 and we need a winner.
1-1, and it was actually identical scorecards, but the other way around, wasn't it, from the first fight? And I think it needs an end. It needs a conclusion.
And who are them boys? I don't know.
True.
I feel like against each other it looks close and competitive. Against everyone else it doesn't.
That's right.
It's just what it seemed like for the whole of both of their careers. Hasn't mattered who else has been in. It's not been competitive until they found each other. So we might as well just keep seeing them fight each other for the best part.
That's completely true. It's no shade on anyone else in the division. They just are that good. What's interesting when you look at Yard and Arthur is that between them they've boxed Beterbiev, Bivol and Kovalev. Kovalev maybe wasn't at his absolute peak when Anthony Yard boxed him, but still he's the crusher. He was in Russia. He took him close in the 8th that night, couldn't quite get over the line against Beterbiev. Now there's a performance that'll age well too, because I was ringside for that, and Beterbiev had to dig that out. I know he stopped him in the 8th, so you can't exactly say that it was that close, but after 5 rounds I was right next to Beterbiev's corner, giving him a proper G up, the trainer Mark Ramsey, saying to him, listen Arthur, we've got to respond here, because it was a firefight, and he showed us plenty, but he hasn't managed to get over the line yet, and time is maybe running out.
Yeah, unfortunately for him, he's been almost like the nearly man. However, I think he's done a very good job at being absolutely destructive in 90% of his fights outside of the world level, and he's always got himself in a good, strong position. And when the big fighters come, you have to commend him. He's always been willing to take it. He's always been willing to travel to Russia or to fight the best in the division. And not only that, he's shown a genuine good level that, do you know what, for me, it's his muscles. It's how much power he generates is a blessing and a curse sometimes. I think when we've seen him relax for quite a few rounds, controlling, against the top, he's losing those rounds. But then when he bursts, it doesn't matter who he's in against, he's a genuine threat. He carries a lot of power. He's very explosive. He's got good balance to throw different sorts of shots on the way in. But I think what happens is when he gets past the bursts, once he's sort of ran out of energy a little bit, because of how impressive physique he carries on top of him, it slows down a lot quicker, and then when it has slowed down, it becomes more of a burden onto him than maybe, say, when Lyndon's tired, some of a more slimmer frame. Do you know what I mean? In the sense of muscle boundness. But yeah, I think it's a great fight. I know a lot of people have been questioning, did we need to see the trilogy? Well, who else is out there at around a certain number? It was 1-1. The way Lyndon won the fight is probably how he's always going to win this fight unless he walks him onto a big right hand. And how Yard won the rematch is probably how Yard's always going to win a fight against Lyndon. Because for me, if Yard was 15% less accurate, 15% less destructive in the rematch, and there was a couple more rounds still in it, at one point he would have fell off the cliff, because he would have had to. He came out of the blocks in the rematch. At no point did you see him with that energy in the first fight.
I think that's a good summary, particularly the kind of burst theory, because against Beterbiev was getting on top of him, then he had a real burst, rocked Beterbiev back onto his heels. That's where he was, Matt, at the end of that 5th. But then against someone like him, that's the problem that Anthony and Lyndon have both had, was that he was in with Beterbiev. That would have beaten somebody else, but it didn't beat him. And then when Lyndon got his chance against Bivol, bit of a race against time to get fit firstly, but then he dug in and managed to go the distance, which on the night I think was a kind of victory of sorts. I mean, they've had it tough, haven't they?
Yard carries a lot of explosive power, as Tony. He's very muscular, a lot of explosive power, but power is very energy sapping. You've got so many bursts per round. It's got to be a sustainable pace, and if you keep bursting and bursting, you've got to run out of steam. So, but then if someone's sticking it on you and making you throw again, it's just conserving energy and getting the pace right, and it's not always easy, because if someone's in your face and you're throwing shots and you're landing, you think, can I get him out of there? But if you don't get him out of there, you're going to blow out. You blow up and run out of steam.
Okay, well, Conor Benn is going to join us next. He will be our next boxer in the ring.
He's just like me. He's got big shoes to fill. He's always been dedicated. We're just the same.
I am my father's son. For me, this fight is legacy. It's all teed up for this. Fate has played a part in me getting to. We've come so far. I rise to the occasion every single time. Everything's teed me up for this moment.
A sensational finish for Conor Benn.
I don't know defeat. I refuse to be beat. This is legacy. This is history.
She's going to make for one hell of a fight.
So that is the father down at ringside, Nigel Benn, with Eddie Hearn.
Scheduled for 12 rounds in the middleweight division. Let's first welcome from Ilford, London, England. He is undefeated with 23 wins, 14 of his 23 wins coming by way of knockout. Let's welcome the undefeated former WBA Continental Champion, Conor the Destroyer Benn.
And Matt, of course, what we're doing this week is pitting these two against each other because they're going to fight on Saturday night. But what's always interested me, and we touched on it yesterday, is the similarities between Benn and Eubank in terms of their boxing journeys. Yes, they're both sons of famous fathers, but both dads took the same approach when their sons said they wanted to box. And I remember us talking to Conor on our podcast a while ago. It would have been 4 years ago now, probably. And he explained how when he decided he wanted to do this off the back of a small amateur career in Australia, really, his dad sent him over to Ilford, where he's from, rented him a flat, nothing special. I think gave him something ridiculous like 50 quid a week spending money. He had to get 2 buses to the gym, and that was how it was for him, because they want them to earn it. In the early stages, they wanted them both to prove that this is for you.
Show me how much you want it. You know, don't tell me how much you want it. Show me how much you want it. So make it as tough as possible. And I guess there might have been a part of it that was probably hoping they won't want to do it after that as well. But when they, and then I guess if you do still want it after that, then you got my blessing.
And I think probably any fighter knows that typically 99% of fighters that you see and that are impressive usually come from hardship. The reason why it's such a working class sport is because the only people really insane enough to dedicate a whole life to getting punched in the face are ones that don't have too much more other options. Now, you know, being raised as a Benn or a Eubank, you can only imagine, you know, what the kitchen looked like and what the drive looked like. They had such great high pinnacle professional careers that would have been able to afford the fathers to give their sons the best parts of life throughout. Now, you strip someone away of that. If you're going to go be a fighter, that's the first thing you have to strip away. You have to strip away the comfort, you have to strip away the luxury, because the fighters that you're going to be coming up against, they're not going to have that until they get there.
And the fathers know how tough that road is, and they want to see, have you got the minerals, have you got the desire to do this? She's all right, don't tell me, show me. You know, and you, like you say, you strip that away, you strip away the luxuries, and they still come out the other side of that and they want it badly. Well then, I guess if you're Eubank Senior or Benn Senior, then you think, okay, fair enough, you got my blessing now.
Yeah, and I feel like once your son, once a boy starts becoming a man, they can start making their own decisions. Once they've looked at boxing their whole life because their father was a legend, how can you begrudge them from wanting the same? I said it yesterday, how can you begrudge a son that has watched thousands, if not millions of people in awe at their father and their efforts in the boxing ring? How could you not want a bit of that for yourself? Why would you want a different reality to that?
That's right.
And there is something impressive too, I've always thought, about people who choose to do this despite the fact that they don't have to do it. You talked about the necessity that drives a lot of fighters. They need to escape their circumstances. This is the only real way out for them. There are so many stories like that down the years, but when you have someone who doesn't have to do it but chooses to do it, that's a kind of whole other ball game in a way. Just actually, you're not a bad example of this, because you were a year into a law degree, I think, weren't you, when you decided to sack that off and turn pro as a fighter? And, you know, you did well at school and all that kind of thing. You didn't have to be a boxer, but you wanted to be a boxer. And did you ever come up against opponents who kind of looked at you and just thought, you know, why are you here? You didn't need to do this.
I don't know what they thought, but I know from my point of view, I was chasing a dream. Do you know what I mean? You want to prove that. I guess Conor Benn and Eubank Jr., they're trying to prove themselves to their dads almost. They're trying to prove themselves to everybody that they've known growing up, that probably were in awe of their dads. They want to prove, yeah, but just because I've had it this way doesn't mean that inside me I'm not tough or I'm not hard and gutsy. They want to prove that they're those men too.
Didn't your dad put up a boxing ring in the front garden? I heard that down in your part of the world, everybody knew where your house was because there was a boxing ring in the front garden. Did you and Charlie really have any choice? I know your dad wasn't a boxer, but he was a competitive athlete, wasn't he? He raced hot rods for Great Britain, I think. So, I mean, did you have a choice?
Yeah, of course we had a choice. Charlie was putting on a bit of weight and finally starting to think about, 11, 12, starting to think about girls and what your body looked like, and he wanted to go boxing to sort of not be a little chubber, and I looked at my brother and thought I want to do everything he does, I want to do it better because I was competitive. And yeah, our dad had us in the boxing ring. We trained like Chinese gymnast kids. We was running 30 miles a week. We was training 3-4 hour sessions, and he would tell anyone that ever met him that his two sons were the best Britain had ever had. I'm talking, we're age 14, 15 at this time. But that support, I was having a conversation earlier, that support of having your dad there, taking you, picking you up from school, making you not have to think about anything, that got me and my brother where it is today. That support that Conor Benn's feeling all week, all camp, and the support that in this camp, Chris Eubank's not had.
And we talk often about fighter-trainer combinations, and this is a tight bond between Conor Benn and Tony Sims. Nigel Benn entrusted Conor to Tony, and they've stuck together all the way through. That's not been an easy thing to do over the last couple of years. He will have been very important, Tony, with that kind of mentoring role, that second father figure role, to try and keep him going through what they described as some very dark times. He's a very good coach, isn't he, Tony? He's a man of relatively few words. He's not interested in doing interviews, but he knows the sport inside out.
Yeah, and he's brought a few fighters through now. We've seen a good run of form, especially a few years ago. There was a real high moment for him, and I think this is again the stage where, look, if he comes through, this is Conor Benn, perceived underdog in a lot of people's eyes, the smaller fighter. If he finds a way to win this, win it clean, win it clearly, this will be a great performance from the whole team. The preparation, the weight, there's a lot of variables, a lot of things were changing. It weren't where he's been preparing to, what he's been dropping to. They would have had to go up higher. They'd have been eating more. They would have been changing things. They would have had to do more training because he's a lot more fueled than what he would be. They would have had to do a lot of adjusting to get Conor Benn ready for this fight.
Yeah, absolutely. There's literally a lot of science to it, because it would be easy for people that you could just kind of relax and just not worry too much about your calorie intake, but the goal is, like you say, to go above it and then come down to it.
And let's be real, the 2.5 year hiatus from when it was meant to happen till now has probably done Conor the world of good. Okay, I know it was at 157 before, and there was a much bigger question mark at that weight than now we're at 160.
He's had the 2 fights now, hasn't he, up at super welterweight?
He's had the fights, he's walked around for heavier, he's not had to drop down, he's had more time in camp, more time sparring bigger guys and getting prepared for this fight.
And bigger himself, because you don't want to be, all of a sudden you go up in weight and you could easily feel sluggish, not losing sharpness. It's, bigger, heavier doesn't always necessarily mean better. Everyone's got an optimum fight.
It doesn't always mean more powerful, because if you're not hitting that sweet spot of how quick the punch gets there, how well and the weight is balanced.
You lose your sharpness, you're going to lose your power.
And you put in too much weight behind the shot, all of a sudden you're missing the shots that used to get there. It's fractions of a second, it's that timing, it's that ability to let it go at that exact moment for it to land at the right time. And you add a couple of kilos, a couple of pounds, it can have a little difference, it can have adjust. You add 13, it can have a massive difference on the shape of the body.
I remember seeing him actually about 2 weeks before the fight fell apart. We were in the Intercontinental off the side of the O2 mat, and he walked past, we had a quick chat, and he looked absolutely fantastic back then, and obviously that's no indication of what's going to happen now, but I just remember being very, very impressed by the shape that he was in. One thing that people kind of overlook, I think, is because of the surname and the spotlight that's been on him and the fact that he's headlined a amount of cards, this is the first time he's been involved in anything like this, and this is massive. Eubank's been involved in stuff like this before. We kind of feel like Ben has, but actually he hasn't. And what kind of impact could that have?
No, definitely. Like he's been around it, but to be headlining, to be the half of the main event of it, it is on territory for him, really. And But I think he'll take it in his stride. You know, there's been 2.5 years since the first one. That was a big build-up, so he'll have the experience of going through all that, which would hold him in, you know, good stead for this as well.
What's your take on that, Sonny? Because you know, you headlined cards, of course. You were in big fights. You became a world champion, and you would have been on big cards, but not the main attraction. What's the difference like?
It's massive, to be honest. And even after I had the biggest night maybe of my life against Bam Rodriguez, my next was on his undercard, and that was a bigger event, but I weren't the main event this time. And it's a different sort of fight week. It's more relaxed for me. I think when you get there, and you know, I maybe thought at flyweight I'd never really get this moment. I never thought I'd be getting to the press conference, public workout, because at first I wasn't even invited to him. I was on the undercard. I didn't need to be anywhere until the weigh-in. But the moment that the eyes are on you, the moment the pressure, all of a sudden, every conversation, all the interviewers, they're first wanting you rather than anyone else. Normally, someone might come, you might get pulled somewhere, there might be something you're doing with the promoter to help push your career. All of a sudden, it's, okay, we need a 2-3 hour slot and we're going to hit 12 interviews, and then all of a sudden it's a Zoom, and then you've got to drive over there and do something else, you've got to do a face-to-face. It all becomes a lot more of a busy fight week.
So here we go. Eubank Jr. is in the house, but whilst we're looking at him backstage, we've been joined by some British boxing royalty. The Dark Destroyer himself, Nigel Benn. Nigel, I've been doing this for quite a long time now, but the timing of your fight with Eubank was I was 12 and it just sucked me down the boxing rabbit hole, and I've never returned. So I am slightly starstruck by you still, to be honest.
From Brighton, England.
But how is this experience for you? I've been watching the behind-the-scenes stuff, and you're in the background there, just giving whatever supports your son that you feel that he needs. Does it almost feel like you're reliving it?
I'm going to stop you right there. He don't need nothing from me. He's been sparring with William Skull. He's been sparring with Denzel Bentley. He's been sparring with the guy that knocked out Mongia. Mate, these weren't middleweights or super. They were like light heavies. And you know what? No, I was like, after the spar with William Skull, I was kissing my son, saying, man, it's like my little boy. Like my little boy. I thought, mate, what? Me and Tony went, I'm not going to say, he said, we went, what the friggin' hell just happened? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And bossing them all around, no disrespect to none of them. But this is a guy that's moved up a weight, 2 weights, and doing it easy with these big guys that world ranked middleweights and super middleweights, an IBF champion.
What about psychologically though? Because you spend a lot of time.
I know where you're going. Connor's 100%, not like him, 60%. Connor's 100% on the money.
But does he not come to you for advice for anything?
Huh?
Does he not come to you for advice for anything?
No, not at all. I'll stay out of it. He don't need no advice from me.
Matt, I kind of feel like if I was Conor Benn, I would be going to him for advice, because
mate,
this is a man who's been there and done it.
I don't believe him. He's lying. Of course he goes to him. His dad is with him. Of course he goes to him.
Listen, me and Conor, we have a good father and son relationship. We laugh and we joke and all that. But it's not even about that, because I've seen what he's done. I've been in training camp. I actually told Tony, just show a little bit what he can do. He just showed a little bit. Not like coming out there tip-tapping, just showing a little. And Conor's one of these old fighters that can do 15 rounds. He's not a 12-round fighter, he can do 15 rounds. When he was sparring with Skull, he was up in the pace. He was meant to do 10 rounds, and he only managed 7.5. You worked that out. You worked that out. My little boy. So I'm not saying no more. Why do you think I've got a big smile on my face? Do I look like I'm threatening? Oh my gosh, not at all. It will not go past 4 rounds. Everybody's got this weight about Eubank. Oh yeah, he's a big... Mate, you didn't see what Conor was doing with world-ranked fighters. You didn't see William Skull.
Yeah, but people can't speak about what they didn't see.
Pardon?
But people can't speak about what they didn't see.
Yeah, but I'm telling you now, so at the end of the day, but everyone's saying, oh yeah, he's bigger. Mate, and listen, when we lost to Smith the first time around, that was Smith at his best. The second fight, Smith was all over the place with his legs. In the first 4 rounds, he was claiming Smith. He was scared. Didn't he realise he ain't got no power?
And can you imagine what this support on fight week from your dad, who's also a British boxing legend, a world boxing legend, really? Can you imagine the energy that Conor's soaking in from this response from not only the person that brought you in this world, but someone...
I'm actually going to tell you, he's like a much better version of me, and it was like, it's himself. I don't take no credit, it's himself. The way that he's gone from fighting, first having his pro debut, to where he is now, that's all hard work. When he, like, seeing him now, it's like 90% better.
Yeah, you've seen him go for the...
Spar with the IBF champion, oh my gosh. Denzel Bentley, world ranked. The guy that knocked out Mongia. Bruno
Serace.
Mate, I'm sorry to say, but he was looking for the back of the ropes. I'm so proud, so happy at my boy. He don't go past 4 rounds, I'm telling you that now.
So we were talking about it when Conor was in the ring. We were just going back to his early days and what he told us about how it went with you when he basically said he wanted to box, and when you sent him over to Ilford with basically just some pocket money, he was getting the bus to the gym. Did you basically
£50 a week.
Did you want him to do this?
No, I didn't. But the difference is he didn't live the life that I lived, so I'm happy about that. And he's gone down that good route.
But you wanted to make it, Matt was saying you needed to make it hard for him to see how much whether he was real, whether it was for him or not.
Yeah, I was going to go and say if he really wants it, you ain't getting no help from me. And that's what I've done. £50 a week. Sometimes they ring me up and say, look, Dad, I'm at Ricky Hatton's. Have you got £20? I want to buy fish and chips. So I sent it over to him. But I look where he is now.
The best £20 you ever spent, Nigel.
So do you really not think that Eubank poses any kind of threat?
Pardon?
Do you really not think that Eubank poses any kind of threat?
No, absolutely none. When I saw him, the last guy that he fought, the Russian guy, I think, or something, I was worried. When he got a clip, I thought, don't, because I knew Conor was in line for it. I'm not worried. I'm absolutely not worried. Not because of what Eubank, about what Conor could. Don't even think about him. All about Conor. And I say it don't go past 4 rounds. Maybe you might be a bit shocked, but I've seen what my son's done.
Well, no, I'm not going to argue with you. Let's be clear about that. But just final one before we let you go.
Yeah.
Obviously, you played an active part in Conor's preparations. Are you slightly sad that Chris Senior's not going to be there on the night?
100%. I'm so sad. I wish Chris was there, mate, because at the end of the day, it's a family affair. And you know what it is at the end of the day, you've got one dad. I don't like to see that with a father and son fall out publicly. You know, sort out your issues behind closed door and make up, mate. I don't like to see that. I wish Chris Eubank did not slag off his son publicly, regardless about smashing the egg. He's not a disgrace. He's done really well for himself. You know, he shouldn't be like that. You know, saying that in public about your son, mate. Get your head sorted out, mate. I'm sad about that. I wish Good would see that, you know, he's got to back his son, whatever he does, and not keep saying, like, you know, that the fight, you know, is not going to happen. It is going to happen. We're right here now. And the other thing I want to say is, we're all talking about this hydration. You know what it is? 10 pounds. He's always fought at middleweight. So how all of a sudden now, because he's fighting Conor, it seems a problem. I don't get it. But anyway, we don't care. I guarantee he'll mostly say he's struggling at the weight. And I think after this fight, he'll say, let's make it at 160. I'll tell Conor, take it at 168. I don't care. I think once you lost your chin, you can't replace it. It's gone. And you'll see on Saturday night.
Okay, we'll leave it there.
You look a bit shell-shocked, you
No, I just still can't, you know.
Let me just get my breath back there.
Well, to be honest with you, I'm just kind of gazing at you, Nigel, with a mixture of awe and love, given the...
You just wanted another cuddle there. I was on to you there, Andy.
given the entertainment you gave us back in the day, because it's quite hard to explain to people who weren't around then just how massive it was, that fight, those two fights between you and Chris Senior, because
we're on terrestrial TV.
Terrestrial TV, national newspapers, radio, nothing else. It's a different world now, but literally if you stopped anybody on the street and asked them Ben or Eubank, they would know what you were talking about. It's a long time ago now, but does it seem like another life?
No, but it's like another. I don't know. It's just like, it's completely different, mate. It's like it is. Now it's like called pay-per-view now. I wish pay-per-view were around when I was around, mate. I'd be living in Buckingham Palace, but that's another thing. You know what I mean? But anyway, I'm going back to be with my son.
Okay, we'll let you go.
Bless you.
Thanks very much.
Take care.
Good to see you. And meanwhile, in the background, Chris Eubank Jr. is actually doing a little bit of work. Conor Benn, as we saw, did a reasonable amount of work, gave us a little bit of a show. Eubank in there with Jonathan Banks, who trained him for his last fight. His fight before that, of course, it was Brian McIntyre, who had some logistical issues exiting Great Britain, I think is probably the diplomatic way to put it. And so he's been with Jonathan Banks, who is a very experienced trainer. And we saw a clip of him talking to Eubank yesterday. And the gist of it was that he's not trying to reinvent the wheel. When you've got somebody who's that age, who has had a lot of success, you don't want to try and completely change them in a way that maybe Roy Jones did try and do. You've got to work with what they're good at and with what they're comfortable doing.
Yeah, you've got to work with what they've got. That's worked for them. They've been successful, so it works. You've just got to try and put your own bit of polish on that. As you see, he's a good coach, been around a long time, worked with lots of different fighters, and he'll know that you can't change a fighter at this stage in his career. You've just got to get him fit, get him sharp, get him motivated, mentally focused, and if you can add a few little nuances here and there, great.
Yeah, and it almost seemed to be around the time that Chris Eubank started calling for the Crawford fight. When I first saw that, I thought that you still had the same trainer. I didn't know how it was going to work, but obviously we've seen him, he's moved to Banks, and he's confident in the work he's doing. He's looked relaxed, he's looked confident. The whole process, really, he's been enjoying the little wind-up. Maybe it's just not got to the right stages of fight week yet before we've really started seeing anything. Both fighters have been very reserved and kind of just focused on turning up, getting the business out of the way. No one's seemingly interested in selling the show massively or blowing it out the water just yet. So I think we'll be interested to see if at any point that sort of narrative changes from either fight. I think that's what most people are looking out for right now between the two headline fights.
And Matt, we feel like we know what Conor Benn will do when the first bell rings. Unless it's some big double bluff, then he's going to come for Eubank. He can't be reckless or gung-ho. He has to be as clever about it as he can be, but he is going to look for him. When the bell goes, if you're training Eubank, what do you tell him to do? First bell, what does he do?
Eubank?
Yeah. I think if I was Eubank, I'd try and take the centre of the ring and back Conor Benn up. I'd try and take the play away from him.
I don't know if I necessarily agree. I think if Chris gives up his height reach advantage and looks to sort of close the gap down and pull it on Conor, with use of a better word.
But you can do it in a clever way. He can still keep the height and the reach and take the centre of the ring.
I just think we're going to see him sitting off, and I think we're going to see him touching the first phase, and as soon as Conor tries to come in, tries to come round, tries to do anything, then I think we're just going to see him letting shots go and trying to just be quite methodical with it. I think he's going to try and walk him onto that uppercut, try and walk him onto a clean shot moment, and I think he's going to try and do his best job of not giving anything easy. I think if he can get out in the ring unmarked, unscathed, that's what he's going to try and do.
I think the uppercuts will be key for Eubank. I think Conor Benn's a shorter guy. They'll be looking to bob and weave and come underneath. And I think the jab, keeping him at that distance, and also trying to walk him onto the uppercuts, I think that'll be big for Eubank.
The way that he throws that uppercut too, I mean, it's quite long, isn't it, compared to most people's? He really kind of whips it in. He doesn't get on your shoulder and just throw it really, really tight. So you feel like that could be a punch that he could bring him onto. I'll be really interested to see what he does do when the first bell goes, because I hear exactly what you're both saying. He's got the height and reach and the size, basically. Can he use that to just keep it on the outside, or like you say, take the middle and keep him up? He's got a decent enough jab, but it's never been a match.
Yeah, I think we've seen him use it well at times. I think there's been some fights where when he has been hesitant and a bit more patient, he might not have at them times had the overall quality to control it as much. So when he started like letting his hands go, and I think what's never been questioned is his athleticism. He's always been very capable of throwing 5, 6, 8, 10 of the same shot if he wants to. He's physically very fit, very strong, and I think a smart coach in this instance looks at the only way that Conor Benn can win and go away from that. I think you give Conor Benn a fight and some easy target to hit, and when you're throwing a clean shot, that's his percent for me. That's his chance to win the fight. Now, if Chris is establishing his reach, touch him on the way in, setting his feet as Conor comes and then lands whilst Conor's stepping over the trench, then I don't really see a way where Conor's going to be able to get to him without having to take that clean shot on the way in.
He's always had good hand speed, hasn't he, Eubank? Good rhythm to him.
Oh, but he's also had a good chin, really, for the most part. And what I think's happened that sometimes, I think people have looked at Liam Smith not at maybe the same level that I do. I think in the build-up at the press conference, there was talks about, well, Liam beat him. Liam fought Canelo. Liam's been world champion. Liam's operated and been a tough competitor all the way to the very top.
Yeah, Liam, when he fought Canelo, and I know this for a fact, he didn't spar for 4 or 5 weeks before because he got caught sparring Cal Brook, so he wasn't even tip-top going into the Canelo fight. But it was at the time by far the biggest purse he would have had. It was, you know, a life-changing amount of money. It was Canelo. You know what I mean? He couldn't really pull out of the fight, but he wasn't. I know he wasn't his best because I know he didn't spar for 4 weeks prior to the fight.
And also with that defeat to Liam Smith, who is just a very good fighter, fact, end of story, we all know that. The way that he got hurt was kind of odd because he got backed up into the corner and then he was looking away when he got hit, so he wasn't really braced for it, which is his fault, but the fact that he wasn't braced for it, I think, made it even more devastating.
I think the thing with Liam Smith and the loss that Eubank suffered against him was the manner of it. I don't think it was because it was Liam Smith or Liam Smith's ability, but I think Liam would admit this, going into that fight, he wouldn't have been considered a heavy one-punch knockout merchant, and Eubank would have been known as having really solid whiskers, but he got dropped heavy and was out on his feet when the fight got stopped. So, you know, Nigel said there he thinks Chris Eubank's chin's gone. He said when it's gone, it don't come back. He's only had the 2 fights since. One was the rematch, and obviously the fight out in Saudi. So I don't know if his punch resistance has gone or not.
And like I said, because the most biggest evidence of it is the Liam Smith, I feel like every time Beefy does throw a shot, it's weighty. Now, he's very good at throwing with you in the fight, and I think that's what Conor needs to be doing. When Conor gets close enough to Chris and they're both throwing, he's got to stay calm, he's got to be resetting his feet at a better rate, and he's got to be picking his moments better, I think. There's a lot of variables, but we've seen he can be hurt. Conor Benn, we know, is a big... he can hurt someone and knock them out cold. So even though that might not be carried up all the way, if he's consistently landing some clean shots and doing a good job at getting out the way and smothering when he needs to, he can cause Chris Eubank nightmares. But I think it's much more reliant on, yes, the chin, but his tactics, Chris Eubank. I think, like I said, if he stands off, if he uses his reach and his height and his timing, and if he's still got it.
See, I think if he uses with Eubank boxing, keeping the head land down, trying to jab and back off, you know, kind of Ben coming in low and then punching up, generating power, springing up. I think he's more open, more vulnerable to getting hit with a big shot. I think if he comes out, takes the centre of the ring and knows he's there and bends his knees, and then Ben comes in, try and push him back and step on him and back him up behind the double jab. You take, and if he can get Conor Benn going back, it's going to be more difficult for Ben to leverage to get the power into the shots. That's where I think if he comes out, doesn't have to push, just take the centre of the ring and don't get backed up. I think if he starts getting backed up and he's trying to jab and Benn's coming up high, coming from a low position, punching over the top, he might be more open for that right hand down the left side.
And that's why I think if he is going forward trying to push him back, if he steps in punching down, his chin's massively exposed for an over the right hand, and I think that's why I just think we're going to see him playing a bit more safe. I think he's going to look at Conor Benn as a brawler, as someone. Chris Eubank's not naive enough to not at least respect his qualities, I think, and I think he's likes to come across, and I think he does, as a more intelligent and thoughtful boxer with a lot of the work he does both inside and outside the ring. And I don't think he's going to want to go in there and just have a shootout. I don't think he's going to want to give that luxury.
You know what I'm saying?
Conor.
He doesn't. He can take the centre of the ring without having a shootout.
Yeah, of
smart,
course.
You know.
But it's about getting carried away with the success. If you hit one, you hit two, then the third comes, and that's when the response comes. And I don't know. It'll be. I think definitely though the tactics of both fighters will be interesting, because I even think Conor will get a lot more success if he's not just marooned plodding forward. I think if he can find a way.
Easy work on Saturday. Tell him something.
Easy work on Saturday, Eddie's letting us know. Easy work. I don't know if I fully agree with him, but that's what the boss is saying. My boss, anyway.
When you look at it, you have, if you're being logical, you have to make Eubank the favourite. We were talking about this yesterday because he's the one who's boxed at middleweight almost his entire career. Good spell up at super middleweight, and he's operated at a much higher level. So if you look at the bare bones of it like that and just be completely about it, then you have to install him as the favourite. Quite interesting, isn't it, that both of our main eventers chose to do a pretty solid amount of work in there. Chris got a decent sweat on. Conor did the same, which you don't always get at the open workouts. He's quite hard to read, Eubank, isn't he? That expression on his face, it didn't really change too much as he was being put through his paces. And when it comes to predicting what he will and will not do in terms of will he come over here and have a conversation with us or won't he, I can't make any firm predictions on that, on the movements of Chris Eubank Jr. But we will hear plenty from him during the course of the week. And they've both been quite relatively tight-lipped so far. I mean, they've done the bits and pieces that they've needed to do, but it's the press conference that is the real set piece, whatever it is that they both want to say tomorrow. And Eubank in those situations, he is the governor, isn't he? But I mean, how much does it really matter?
I think the press conference will be lively tomorrow. I think it's been fairly low-key up to now. They're doing what they've got to do, but I think that tomorrow, the press conference, that's when they're going to get the chance to kind of plant that doubt in you, get that one-upmanship.
Yeah, and I think, like Andy just said, Chris Eubank naturally just stops, smiles, tells Eddie to shut up. Like, he's just constantly just doing something. Is it pre-organised or arranged in his head? Is it pre-planned? Is it completely just off the cuff? Who knows? You'd have to ask him. But he always does a very good job at, no matter what gets said to him, having something good to come back with. And, you know, he's very confident, he's very successful, he's well-dressed, he knows how to articulate himself. So it almost paints the picture, not really trying to argue with him. And I think a lot of the time, it's easy just to sort of get frustrated at what he's doing because he's not giving loads of energy, he's not getting angry, he's not getting agitated in front of you. He almost looks like he's enjoying the exchange, and I think that's what usually gets someone. I think looking at him and thinking he's getting exactly what he wants right now, while their heads reacting to the little one-liners. Now he's got their promoter getting up, calling everyone scumbags. Like, he's always got something going on where usually he's upsetting a few people in the room.
What I've always been really impressed about with him, though, is that he's been his own man right from the start, but you carry the surname and it's got some real weight to it. But he does seem to genuinely be one of these rare individuals who lives his life on his terms, and as he's been at pains to point out in the build-up to this fight, he's still the bad guy. He never cheats, he never cuts corners, he never lies, but he's still the bad guy. But he does seem to not really be too bothered by what other people think about him, and that's a very difficult thing to achieve, particularly these days.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to want to win the admiration of the millions and the billions. He doesn't seem to want to be the people's champion. That's never been the angle he's gone down, and I feel like that's what's so bizarre maybe about how this has come out, that I do think the general typical gist of what people would want to happen, because of the scandal really, and maybe the way that he's sort of entertained the way through, the main selling points in this build-up have all been Chris Eubank. I think the main, sound bites, the content that's gone out there, it's kind of been more Eubank, where Ben seems much more track-minded, much more focused, much more, I just want to get in there and get the fight. It's kind of been his narrative the whole way through, which, don't get me wrong, I think there's pros and cons of both, but when it comes to being the showman, when it comes to selling, I think Chris Eubank is a hard man to compete next to.
100%, and we will see that battle tomorrow at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. That wraps it up for the open workouts, and for these couple of days we've spent in Canary Wharf. We decamp tomorrow to N17 to North London, a spectacular setting where we will see these two and the rest of the card, of course, up on the top table, and they will have their last meaningful opportunity to score some verbal victory over their opponent if they are so inclined. I think Eubank Jr. will definitely be inclined. It'll be interesting to see what we get from the rest of the undercard as well, actually. I think Brandon Glanton may have a few things to say. Yard and Lyndon Arthur, that could get a little bit heated at times. But thanks for joining us today. We will catch you again tomorrow.
This fight will not go 12 rounds.
The procedure will be parliamentary.
I don't think this fight will go 6 rounds.
I look at him as someone I want to beat up. A bad beating.
From the first bell on April 26th at the Tottenham Stadium, Conor Benn will come out with the pain, with the suffering of the last couple of years, and will attempt to set about Chris Eubank Jr.
Retribution is coming your way, mate, I'm telling you.
He can prepare however he likes. He still ends up on the floor eating the canvas.
He's going to hit you so many times with a left, you're going to be crying for a right. Will it go past 4 or 5 rounds? No. Soon as Conor hits him, that's it.
They will meet each other in the ring, head on, and they will go to war at Tottenham Stadium till the last man standing.
Ideal world, I knock Satsuma head out, splatter his head off on the canvas.